Today I'm testing fountain pens which range from £5 up to £1,000. Now I do feel like there's some kind of meme about this.
Are you serious?
Yep, I'm afraid I'm serious. And what that means is in my little pot here, we have some pens which are 200 times more expensive than other pens. But what I want to know is which is the best pen for sketching? And if we're going to spend a lot more money, what do we get for that money? A nicer sketching experience, a finer line, or just some really nice packaging? I very often get asked the question, what pen should I get for sketching? Or what's the best sketching fountain pen? So I thought I'd do a video where I would root through my drawers, find all my pens, go in the garage, dig out the ones I've not used for years, which were in the depths of some boxes, and compare them all. Now, some disclaimers. Not all the nibs I'm going to compare today are the same, but that's kind of the point. I'm not interested in similarities. I'm interested in what's different. What's a unique use case for each of these pens? To keep things the same, I will be using the same ink. Carbon black ink by Platinum in all of my pens, and sketching everything in this, a Stillman & Byrne sketchbook. Like any scientific, objective, unbiased and perfect, frankly, test, we've got a scoring system. Now every pen will be ranked from D, absolute trash, up to S, simply the best fountain pen ever. To come to these final scores, we'll consider things like the build quality, how it feels in the hand, how controlled the line is, whether you get feedback, along with the flexibility and variety of line, the amount of expression you can produce from these pens. We'll sneak in some bonus points in places, but only where they're deserved. And of course, we might take away some points if I get particularly grumpy about something that a pen does wrong. Key point here, these are all my opinions. So you can disagree as well. And actually, I'd love you to disagree. Let me know in the comments when I'm wrong. Or even if I'm not wrong, just tell me something I didn't know. It's great to learn from one another. And these are just Toby's opinions. Pen 1, the Platinum Preppy. This is a plastic pen with a steel nib inside it, produced in Japan by the company Platinum. It costs about £5, but you'll also probably want to get yourself an ink converter to go inside it. That's another £2 or £3. Straight out of the gate, these guys get a bonus point because instead of just saying, oh, this is fine or extra fine, which can mean so many different things between different brands, they also say if it's a 0.2 or 0.3 millimeter pen, for example, just like fine liners do, which gives us a bit more predictability in what we are buying. The line it produces is pretty consistent. It's got a lot of feedback, quite scratchy, which won't be for everyone, but is for me. So straight away, I like this pen quite a lot. It doesn't have the flexibility that I'm often looking for though. We can produce a lot of very fine lines, but pressure doesn't produce a much bolder line. So it might mean that if you want a lot of depth, you need to carry around more than one pen, or you end up going up and down the same line a few times, which can lead to a sort of busy, overdrawn look. That said, you can see in this little sketch from Cambridge, we're able to build up those fine, tangly lines, get a really quite a delightful little sketchy feel to our scene. It does take a while. The line is very fine, and we can't just press and add more ink, make it bolder. But there's something in that slow building up process. Additionally, if you are on the beginner end of the spectrum and you need a little assistance with controlling the weight of your line, well, this is here for you because not only does it give you the feedback from that scratchy feel, it's also very hard to make it too bold. These two factors together just make it so much easier to feel controlled in your sketching. Last but not least, yes, it's a plastic construction and yes, it sort of looks and feels cheap. And it is. But cheap in this case doesn't mean it's going to break on you. I've had mine for years and years and they are still working absolutely fine. So where's this pen going in our barometer of penly goodness? Well, it's a good start. Straight for me into the A tier. Pretty good for everyone. Amazing for a starter. Not so good if you want a really smooth drawing experience. Next on our list is the Sailor de Manon Fudi pen. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because it's actually featured in a recent video of mine, which I'll link down below, which was about Things I regret buying. Now in this video I discovered this Fude pen is actually quite nice, and I'd forgotten how nice. A Fude pen is a pen designed to act like a brush, so it's got a bent nib. This one's 40 degrees, and it's very affordable. £13, again with an ink converter costing another few pounds, so you're up to £15 to £18 depending on whether there's a sale on, essentially. Now with that you get a hugely expressive pen, loads of variety in the line, the ability to lay down bold ink marks. It doesn't quite keep up with my faster sketching. The line gets broken up a little bit, which I don't like for me. And for me, the grip that you need to use much tighter, much more controlled, just doesn't suit me. So for those reasons, not because of the quality of the pen, but because of how I get on with it, it's going in the C tier. Now we have the omnipresent bullet journalist, YouTuber, Instagram artist favourite, the Lamy Safari. And this pen can get a bad rap from people, but I think it's unfair. It's actually a very nice pen. Now, what you have costs between £20 to £25, depending on the colour and the nib. And yet again, we're going to be filling this with an ink converter. So you need to buy that. Not hard to find, but it does cost about £5 in my experience. So we're getting towards £30 or maybe $35 or $40 for this pen. So it's cheaper, but not super budget. Similarly, the variability, a bit like the Preppy, not a huge amount. You can change the line with a lot of pressure, but it doesn't instantly become nice and bold. There are some quality control issues. The fine and the extra fine, you can see, are fairly indistinguishable. And sometimes you'll find a fine is finer than an extra fine. They just don't machine it well enough. The medium then becomes incredibly bold, far too bold for me, far too juicy. Lovely writing pen, but just not very nice for drawing with in my style. On the other hand, it's a lovely construction. It's plastic, but textured, great grip with it. And again, lasts for years. But it also sits for me in that unhappy, a bit too bold, not fine enough place when you actually start sketching. So this is a pen which I think will work well for people who like a smooth drawing experience and don't mind a little bit of a bolder line. They're not looking for those tangly, scratchy lines that I love. For me, it's a B tier pen, a good beginner's pen, but not actually as good for my style as the much cheaper Platinum Preppy. A brief shout out here to the Lamy AL-Star or All-Star. The All stands for aluminium, which means it's a sort of metal construction, in theory premium, and the price is more premium. But the feel, compared to the Safari, which is cheaper and plastic, is not premium to me at all. It feels lighter, slippery, cold. The aluminium is very thin. I don't like it. I featured it in the same video I featured the Fude pen in. You can find it below. And I'm just gonna stop there and put it in the D tier. I just don't like it. Our next one is a wild card. This is the Ferris Wheel press roundabout, which is a ink roller pen. Not a fountain pen, but like all of the ones so far, when we're thinking about how we fill them, we can get an ink converter. So in many ways it feels and acts like a fountain pen, but with a different drawing experience. Here we have a very controlled line, quite bold, but it doesn't become over juicy. It's very controlled. It's pretty smooth. There's a funny thing it does sometimes when I think there might be air trapped in it, and it starts to like pop and break. Literally you feel it pop like air's coming out of the nib. And I find that quite frustrating sometimes, but at other times it doesn't happen, and it's a very lovely, smooth drawing experience. The line is very controlled. I've used it a few times on this channel actually, and in many ways the art is indistinguishable from some of the more controlled lines you get from a Lamy Safari. Ferris Wheel Press are a very social media savvy brand, I think, and they have reached out a few times to ask me to promote them. This is not a promotion, this is a neutral response. I've enjoyed using this pen, but it doesn't stay in my sketching kit. Worth an experiment if you like experimenting and have some free money, but getting a little bit out of that budget territory and not really that amazing a sketching experience. I think this is in the C tier as well. A little jump in price now. We have our first sort of what I'd call premium pen. This is the TWSBI Diamond 580. Now there is a TWSBI Eco, which has many of the positives of this pen. A very similar nib and filling mechanism, but a slightly less premium construction. Now the Diamond 580 though is the one that I have used and loved. And why do I like it? Well, as soon as you pick it up, you're holding a well-made object. It's a little bit heavy, there's quite a lot of metal involved. There's bits which turn and lots of screwing mechanisms which just feel secure. And that is also a sign of a more premium pen often. A screwing lid means the lid doesn't just fall off. It's more airtight and therefore safer with permanent ink. It also has this amazing belly full of ink. So when we're thinking about how much ink a pen uses, well, it kind of doesn't matter how much ink this pen uses because it's got about 5 ink cartridges worth in there. You can fill it up, go on holiday, come back, go on holiday, come back, and you'll still have ink to spare. Any downsides? Well, the reason I don't use it a huge amount is because it's too smooth for me. The extra fine nib in this, very fine, very lovely, fairly juicy for an extra fine nib, but it is very controlled. It just doesn't matter how hard I press, it doesn't vary much, and I can't feel that feedback, that scratchiness that I love. Now some people will be the other way around and they'll love that softer feel, and you know, I do carry it around. I use it occasionally, time to time, sketch outside, or often using soluble ink where I'm less bothered by the fineness of the line and I more want to lay down plenty of ink on the page. This is the first one where I'm a bit split on where to put it. For me, it's kind of become a C tier pen because it's just too smooth for my sort of current sketching style. I used to love it though, and for many people who want a smoother experience, it's probably an A tier pen, maybe even S tier for some people. So I'm going to put it where I think it should go. We'll average it out at a B tier. Now, a jump in price and a journey back to Japan. We started with Platinum and we're going to go back to Platinum now. The Platinum 3776. This is a premium pen. I have an ultra extra fine nib in this, and you're going to be looking at anything 110 to 150 pounds or more, depending on deals, exchange rates and things like that. It's got gold trim, a screw cap, and most importantly, a gold nib. Now, a gold nib is a sign of a premium pen. Not just because it's gold, it's not about bling in this case. Gold is not going to corrode like steel. Gold is flexible. And we can immediately see, therefore, not only do we have a more durable pen because of the lack of corrosion, we also have a more flexible pen which can produce such a more dramatic range of lines. This ultra extra fine nib is also very much something you'll only find in Japanese pens. If you want something really fine, then the various premium Japanese brands all have these nibs which are so much thinner than anything made outside of that country. From fine hatching to squirrely lines, but with an amazing ink flow, it just doesn't stop. One small thing to note is it can hard start sometimes. It can take a little while to get going, but once it gets going, then it is going and it will work really nicely until it runs back out of ink, or I put it down for a couple of days and it just needs that little warm-up period again. With a tiny bit of pressure, we get super bold lines, and with a lighter touch, we get the finest, most gentle of lines. Something else which people might not like about this is it's incredibly tactile. A huge amount of feedback comes back from the page, especially on watercolor paper. I love that. It slows me down, it controls my line, and it adds a bit of unpredictability, which I think is really fun. But some people hate it. I've lent this out to people on a weekend workshop actually just the other day, and it came back to me within 30 seconds because they're just like, it's not for me, it's too much. The only other little downside is we have an ink converter in this. I would love it to be belly filled so I could sketch forever, but alas, we have to spend a couple of extra pounds getting the same ink converter as we have in our Platinum Preppy. That said, and even with these little downsides, this is my S tier pen without a shadow of a doubt. It's the one I always use and come back to over and over and over. Now with this Platinum 3776, this delightful pen, if you want to see how I really use it, well, two options. One, come and join me in person. You can find my in-person courses on urbansketch.co.uk. Option 2, join me online on sketchloose.co.uk, especially in the urban course. I use this and we go into great detail about how you can use a flexible pen like this into creating all sorts of varied lines, weight of lines, different textures, continuous lines, and why I love this pen so much. For an extra £20 or so, you can change to a different nib in the same pen. So this is another 3776 by Platinum with a musical nib, really bold nib, a bit like an architectural nib, but bolder. This gives us a narrow horizontal stroke and a bold vertical stroke. A bit like the Fude pen. I need to learn this. So I'm getting better, and you can see the juicy, interesting, varied lines we can produce from this are pretty fantastic. But for me, it's still lacking in control. At the moment, I'm going to go straight up there and say it's a B or even a C tier at the moment. But I think in a few months, when I've got to grips with it a little more, it will be an A tier pen. But that's just wishful thinking. The only other thing about the juicy lines is because of that ink converter, not belly filling, but ink converter, I could run out of ink in about 3 sketches sometimes. It really uses a lot of ink. And then we have this, which kind of needs its own ceremony, and it feels unfair to compare this. Both, we shouldn't be comparing something so grand to all these tiny little measly pens. Look at them. How can they compare? They're tiny. They're pathetic. This is the Emperor. And in so many ways, it is a beautiful pen. Look at it. It just feels good. It's got this amazing filling mechanism, which you can't even see until you start to unscrew it, and it becomes evident that there's a little cunningly machined mechanism on the back. Obviously it's ebonite, handcrafted, individually made. This is gold. What else would it be? And that lovely screw cap, the beautiful big nib, which is a medium, but with just the right feedback. And it can be so delicate and it can be so bold. It never inks too much and you always know where it is. This is amazing. The downside is it's amazing and amazingly expensive. Now, I didn't actually buy this pen, nor was it given to me as a promotion, don't worry. It was actually given to me by a monk. And that's a start of a story which we can end another day. But the pen itself is so lovely that I'm often scared to use it. If I get a little ink smudge, which I just saw one on there, so now I'm needing to end this video so I can go and polish it and get it clean again. It's a scary thing to use as well as wonderful. A bit like, I imagine if I had a Ferrari, I'd not use it to go to Tesco, would I? I'd keep it for that one special drive every year. Nonetheless, if you have a spare couple of grand lying around, you don't need a new boiler, I mean, just get this pen. It's amazing. Now, how can we possibly rank a pen which is so beautifully bold and elegant, so big and yet so delicate, and just feels so good in every way? Well, it's not going on our scale, is it? It's going in its own throne, its own little box. The Emperor rating. Something different, something I would definitely not recommend buying for sketching, but also something I'm extremely grateful to own and enjoy every moment of using when I'm not scared. So there you go. What a load of opinions I seem to have. I've tested a giant mug full of pens and been very opinionated about them. I think those opinions are fair because they're opinions about how these pens interact with my style and how I like to draw. But that doesn't mean my opinions are entirely valid for you. And if you have an opinion, if you have another pen you've tried, or you disagree with what I've said about any of these pens, let me know in the comments, because I would be delighted to hear, to learn something new, and I'm sure everyone else watching would love more than just one grumpy man's opinions on a load of pens. And with that, I'll see you in the next one, and happy sketching and enjoy your inking.